As writers, we all know that creating strong characters is super important because strong characters drive the plot. But how do we do that? We hear about creating strong characters, but what does that actually mean? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about doing that from a psychological perspective and how, if you look at your characters through this lens, then you're going to be able to create characters that are realistic, that are emotionally compelling, and that will definitely drive your story.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author and here to give you some writing tips on Fridays. So let's talk today about characters and what actually drives and shapes our characters. So our characters become the people that they are by a number of things. So first, by the environment that they live in. Second, by the experiences that they have. And thirdly, by their innate traits. Real people are complex, right? Because we're a mixture of all of these things. This is why writing teachers will tell you that the best thing you can do is create a biography of your character, create a history, a Bible of your character and all the experiences that this character has had, who the parents are, and what are some of the traits that this character was born with and has developed over time. These background sheets are super important because as they're put into challenging situations in your novel, the way that they're going to react to those are dependent on their experiences, their innate traits, and the environment that they live in. So sociologists, psychologists, they tell us that humans are shaped by a number of things. So first is the nature versus nurture theory, meaning that we have genetic predispositions, which is nature, and that we are also shaped by environment, our experiences, tragic things that happen to us, wonderful things that happen to us, and that would be nurture, right? So you want to understand for your character the balance there. How much of his life has been shaped by just his own traits, and how much has been shaped by the experiences that this character has had before the story started. Now, another way that your character is shaped is just by personality traits, and the psychologist frameworks have 5 big personality traits. They are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So I'm not going to go into each one of them. You can look this up if you want to, but it's definitely helpful as a writer to help us create sort of these well-rounded characters, right? So let's say that we'll talk about one of them, agreeableness, right? So let's say that your character is generally an agreeable person. Well, then that's going to shape the way that they behave in the novel, right? So are they overly polite? Do they, maybe not stand up for themselves? Are they are they a doormat basically? Or it could be on the positive side of agreeableness, right? They're just easy to get along with. And they, people tend to like them. So just understanding some of these personality traits and how someone would behave would help you to create a better character. Another kind of interesting way to look at creating your characters and personality is the cognitive biases. So what this is that we tend to see the world not the way that it actually is, but the way that we perceive it, which means that this is going to give your characters and us humans, right, a distorted view of reality. We're not really seeing reality the way that it is, but it's dependent on how, on these biases. For example, there are 16 cognitive biases. Again, you can look these up, but one of them is the confirmation bias. What this means is that we interpret things, again, not the way they are, but to confirm something that we already believe. So we already believe a certain thing, and therefore when we see something, when something happens, it only confirms what we already believe. Another one is the Dunning-Kruger effect, which again is very interesting, and it's that we overestimate our abilities. So we think that we can do more than we can, that we're better at things than we really are, and therefore, and then and you can have a lot of fun with this, right? So let's say that you have a brand new detective who isn't really good at his job yet, or he's okay, but he's not as great as he could be yet. But he might think he is, right? He might think he's much better, or you can play with this with your character. So there are, again, different cognitive biases out there that you can uh, research and see. It's like, okay, well, I actually like this for my character. This would fit well for my character, and it helps you to create psychologically a better character. So once we know that our character is shaped by their traits, their environment, their experiences, their way that they see the world and perceive the world, then we've got a good start. The next thing that we want to know is what drives your particular character. So this person is motivated by what? We know as writers, right? We need good motivation for our characters. Now, Maslow, he's another psychologist. He said that we are motivated by a hierarchy of needs. The first is a physiological need. So we have needs to survive. Basically, we need shelter, we need food, we need those needs need to be taken care of first, because those are survival, right? If we don't have food, if we don't have a place to live, we don't have shelter, then nothing else is really going to matter to your character. So this is one of the most important needs that the character has, and they're going to make decisions based on this. So a lot of times at the beginning of the novel, if your character loses a job or doesn't have a home or is about to lose their home, that becomes, right, their main goal is now to get that back, to protect themselves and to protect their family, because that's a survival goal. So your character may have that kind of need. There's a lot of stories out there where that's exactly what's happening, right? The character is just really just trying to survive. Okay, and then the second one is we have feelings, or we have needs to belong and to be loved. So characters will often do things to save their friendships, save their marriage, save their children, right? Because they have that need to belong and to take care of the people that they love. So if this character that we just mentioned, right, not only lost his job or is about to lose his house, but now because of that might lose his marriage as well, he's going to be motivated even more to do something, maybe even something unethical, maybe stealing, or maybe something that the character might not normally do, but because he's not only losing some survival needs and desires, but he's also losing needs to belong to a family and needs for love, then that's going to motivate him even more. Okay, and then the last one is a desire to maintain our self-concept. So this one's a little more complicated. So how do we actually get our self-concept? And self-concept comes from self-efficacy and self-esteem. So self-efficacy first, what does that mean? It's like, what do we think we are good at? And typically we think we're good at whatever people tell us we're good at, or we experienced and been good at something. So the character may be good at playing football, right? Or maybe good at money and finances. And how does he know that? He knows that because either other people have told that character that they're good at it, right? We tell our kids, like, you're really good at math, or you're really good at something, so they grow up learning that. Or they do something and they realize, I'm really good at this. I can manage money. I can do this. So it comes from their experiences and their achievements. So they have a lot of control over the self-efficacy, but the self-esteem is a little different, because that is built a lot by what we experience from other people. So again, if we're getting positive reinforcement for something, so this child plays football and they're good at it, or at least they're told they're good at it, they're going to have a positive self-esteem related to sports, let's say. They might not have a positive self-esteem related to something else. So a lot of times it's parents or teachers or somebody outside that helps to create our self-esteem. So when you put self-esteem and self-efficacy together, you're going to get your self-concept. And so it's a good idea to know, like, what is your character's self-concept and where did it come from? Okay, and lastly, we're motivated by a self-actualization type thing. So what does that mean? It means that we want to become better. Maybe we have this just desire to be more of what we could be, right? So your character, and there's a lot of stories like that. Paulo Coelho writes a lot of these type of characters. Even The Lion King is one of these type of stories of self-actualization. He knows, he has an image of himself as being grander, right? The reason he didn't believe that is because, well, you watch The Lion King, right? He's runs away from his pride, and he doesn't become the person that he could become, the lion that he could become. But eventually he realizes that he has to. He has this image of his father, and all these other things happen, and he knows that he has a higher purpose. And that's what these type of stories are. So some characters will be motivated by this. I know I can become more. I know I'm destined for greatness, or I'm destined to do something else, and that will motivate them to change and to go for their goals. So perfect. We know what shapes our characters, and we know what motivates our characters. And the next thing we need to know to create a really great character is their internal conflict. So readers love to read stories about conflict. That's why they read, right? They want to see the characters overcome challenges, and not only the physical challenges of whatever's happening in the story, the person fighting the bad guy or whatever, but they want the internal conflict. What is really going on inside that character, that is keeping them from getting their goal? And we love to see that, right? Because that shows us the transformation that the character will go through in order to achieve his goal. So are there psychological theories about challenges and struggle? And yes, there are. So what are they? I'm going to tell you about a few of them. So the first is cognitive dissonance. And this is when a character has contradictory beliefs or values. So I'm watching this series called 6 Feet Under, and it's about a family of undertakers. And one of the characters, Dave, is gay. And in that first season, he's struggling with that. Okay, so he's also very religious. And so he struggles with his sexuality and his faith in God. He has two desires and two beliefs that he thinks are contradictory. So he feels that he has to give up one in order to be accepted by the other. So he doesn't feel he can do both. And so he has this cognitive dissonance in his mind where he has to make some type of choice because he has these contradictory beliefs in his mind. All right, the second struggle that your character could have is defense mechanisms. So defense mechanisms are things that we use in order to avoid really emotional pain. So something triggers your character, and usually it's something that reminds them of the past or something that happened to them. And so instead of dealing with it, what they're going to do is they're going to use a defense mechanism to avoid that. They may use anger, they may use crying, they repress that in some way. Some other ones are rationalization or projecting the pain that you feel, the anger, on someone else. So if a character has gone through a bad relationship, for example, they may use a defense mechanism not to get close to other people, not to have another romantic relationship, because the first one was very painful. So they may use anger, they may use repression, they may use whatever, right, in order to avoid falling in love and those feelings. The last one is emotional wounds. So your character may carry emotional wounds with them throughout your story. And then they all kind of build on each other, right? So those emotional wounds that character has, they may use those defense mechanisms in order to avoid feeling the pain of those wounds again. But they may have like a really deep fear. They may have a past trauma of something that's unhealed. And then this is going to continue to cause problems in their current life and in your story, right? So if there's a past wound that they haven't gotten over, you can bring it into your story and have it affect them and their ability. Really, the only reason that it matters is their ability to reach the goal that they're going for in the story. And lastly, we want to consider when we're building our characters is the relationship that your character has with your supporting cast, so with other people in the story. So they're not going to be in the story alone. They're going to be with other people. So we need to consider what their relationship is going to be with each other character that's there. A psychologist, John Bowlby, has a theory of attachment. And he says that people form secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized relationships. And studying these attachment styles could help you as a writer to understand like why your character may bond better with one character than with another, or why they avoid creating an attachment or a relationship with certain characters, or why they have a very intense or angry relationship with a certain character. So for example, if we look at a novel like Wuthering Heights, the main character Heathcliff has he goes back and forth between being very loving, but then also being kind of cruel. And why? Well, because he has an anxious and avoidant attachment style because of his upbringing and because of his history. So if we look at the background of the character, we can see like, okay, what type of attachment style does this character have and why? Why does he behave a certain way, again, with certain characters? You might also look at how your character acts in groups compared to with one-on-one. So maybe with their peer group, they act a certain way. So a police officer may act one way with, let's say, a group of other police officers, but differently in a romantic relationship. So maybe he's very successful with his group of friends who are similar to him, but not so successful, like let's say in a marriage. But looking at things like how do people conform to groups, or how do they behave in peer situations or social pressures? Are they influenced by their peers? Do they have more of a sense of authority when they are with people that are of common interest? It's going to depend a lot on the role that this person has in the group, but you want to look at some of that, like how does this character behave and interact socially with other people. A really interesting character is Katniss from the Hunger Games. And she's basically a loner. She doesn't really trust authority. She prefers to be on her own. But when she gets chosen or really volunteers to for the Hunger Games, now she has to change her social style a little bit, right? So now she becomes, instead of this loner who only looks out for herself, now she's looking out for other people that are weaker than her. So it shows that, she does actually have these social dynamics where she can make deals with impacts, right, with certain groups in order to protect those that she feels can't protect themselves, which makes her very likable. But you take a character who's really a nonconformist, anti-authority, and she becomes a leader, right, within this group setting because, well, we go back to those needs, right? It's a survival thing. She has to survive, and the only way that she can survive is to change the way that she deals in groups and her own personality. And actually maybe more of her personality actually comes out in these social settings, but because it's forced. So watching your character and how they interact in groups is really helpful because it helps you to create, again, a really, really well-rounded character. So the thing to remember here is if you want to build a character with psychological depth, you don't have to become a psychology major, but it really helps to look at some of these theories and see what you could apply to your character. Because what you really want to know, like, what has shaped them? What are they motivated by? What kind of things are they fearful of? What kind of relationships they have with other people? All of those things to create a really, really well-rounded person that as you're writing the story, you're never going to wonder like, how is this character going to behave? Because you really, really understand the character. So hopefully you can see that this is deeper than just saying, well, like, what does my character like to eat for dinner? My character likes steaks. My character does this. Because most of that stuff really honestly doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what kind of car they drive. It's probably going to be based on some of these psychological things, but that will just come if you really know who your character is. But if you don't know some of these things, you don't know what has shaped your character, you don't really understand their motivation, where it comes from, and how he was created, then you're going to have a harder time deciding when you're putting your character in certain situations, like how is he going to react to this? Because it's going to be just random. Your character is going to react maybe the way you would react rather than the way that he would react. Thank you for sticking with me for this long video. I hope you return next week so we can talk about other things related to writing. See you then.